Good afternoon and welcome to the City Club of Cleveland. I'm Hugh McKay, president of the City Club. The Cleveland Metropolitan School District has had a long and storied history of great successes and great challenges. In 1846, Cleveland opened the first public high school west of the Alleghenies. The district grew and prospered, and by the turn of the century, Cleveland's school system was one of the nation's largest. Then in 1915, the Cleveland Foundation commissioned a comprehensive study of the Cleveland public schools, finding fundamental failures to address student needs, and identified 100 points of needed reform. They noted that we will continue to study until satisfactory solutions are reached. So the district, like Cleveland, has had a long history of ups and downs, but certainly a significant up is the hiring of our speaker today, Eric Gordon, as CEO of the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. And it is noteworthy that the Cleveland Foundation, 100 years later, still does study and support the Cleveland schools, and happily it has shown strong support for Mr. Gordon as CEO. Mr. Gordon served as Chief Academic Officer of the district from 2007 to 2011, when the Cleveland Board of Education voted unanimously, with Mayor Jackson's approval, to appoint him as CEO. As Chief Academic Officer, Mr. Gordon was one of the major architects of the district's academic transformation plan that garnered national recognition for its dramatic approach to school reform. During his tenure with the district, the CMSD has engaged in the development of a three-tiered academic improvement model that focuses on both traditional academic achievement strategies and also on improving conditions for learning for students and families. This strategy has produced dramatic reductions in serious safety incidents, suspensions, and expulsions in the Cleveland schools, and led to overall increases in student attendance, an increase in achievement test scores, and the district's highest ever state rating of continuous improvement. Mr. Gordon comes by his passion for the job naturally. Growing up in Northwest Ohio, he says he ate a lot of noodles and government cheese in a rundown house, and he assumed he would work in the local factory and not go to college. He's the first in his family to go to college. But he experienced key nudges and encouragement and inspiration from teachers that changed his entire vision for himself and his potential life plan. From his own experience, Mr. Gordon zealously believes in the power of schools and teachers to change lives, particularly of disadvantaged students. He has recognized that the district cannot do it alone and needs the commitment and support of the entire community. To that end, Mr. Gordon has shown himself to be strongly committed to partnering to fight the good fight for Cleveland school children. Notably, Mr. Gordon and Board President Denise Link joined with Mayor Jackson on a bold letter to Governor Kasich calling for greater teacher accountability, merit pay, and other key reforms focused on getting results and improvements for the students of the district. Mr. Gordon earned a Bachelor of Science degree in secondary mathematics education and a Master's of Education degree in school administration at Bowling Green. He and his wife, Dawn, live in Ohio City. Their children, he says, are the 44,000 students in the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. As former interim CEO Peter Askin said, Eric Gordon has, quote, an unbelievably fiery passion for educating urban youth. Please welcome to the City Club, Eric Gordon.
Thank you, Hugh. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. Before I start my formal remarks, it's pretty overwhelming to walk into this room and see so many familiar faces and so many important leaders in our community. And it really shows already what you're going to hear today about the importance of our schools. I know I cannot thank all of the right people in this room, so I'm not going to manage to botch that up at the beginning. I do want to, however, thank a few key people that make sure that I'm able to do what I do in this work on behalf of our kids. Starting with our Mayor, Frank Jackson, who is here. Mayor, thank you for being with us today. Members of our Board of Education, our Chair, Denise Link. Our Vice Chair, Louise Dempsey. And our members, Willetta Milam, Shalitha Mitchell, and Eric Wobser are with us today as well. Because of the topic we're talking about today, the topic that is my life, I also want to take an opportunity to thank all of the teachers and school leaders that are in the room. There are several here today, and thank you all for being in attendance and doing what you do in our rooms every day. If you could help me thank them and welcome them today as well. And finally, and most importantly, we have students today from Success Tech Academy, the Cleveland School of Architecture and Design, John Adams campus, and John Kennedy campus. And if those students would stand for a moment, let's recognize our youth. Thank you all for being here. I am going to thank one additional person. I rarely do this, but I'm able to do the work that I do every single day because of my partner, my friend, a lifelong educator, my wife, Dawn. And if Dawn, just stand to be recognized for a moment. In 1983, the National Commission on Excellence in Education issued a landmark report titled A Nation at Risk that highlighted the crisis in America's education system. That commission issued a shocking conclusion that American students were at risk of falling behind students from other places in the world. The report said that the status of our education system, unless changed, would imperil our national security and our future prosperity. The conclusions of the committee were alarming. One warning in particular was even more frightening, and I'm going to quote it, stating, "The educational foundations of our society are presently being eroded by a rising tide of mediocrity that threatens our very future as a nation and as a people. If an unfriendly foreign power had attempted to impose on America the mediocre educational performance that exists today, we might well have viewed it as an act of war." 28 years later, the American education system remains in a state of crisis, a message that was reiterated in a recent visit to Cleveland's public schools by U.S. Secretary of Education Arne Duncan. The Secretary's clarion call to the Cleveland community challenged each and every one of us to play a part in changing our educational system. The Secretary's message was clear. The nation's educational system is broken, and we can no longer wait for the school reforms urged 28 years ago to come from anywhere but here, where our needs are seen and felt. We simply cannot continue to wait for help to come from Columbus or from Washington, D.C., or from anywhere else. To ensure that our schools are what they can and must be for the children in this room and the children in our community, it's clear that the solutions to the academic and financial challenges we face in Cleveland, or for that matter, in Detroit, in Washington, in Chicago, in Los Angeles, or in any other city, they must come from within our own school communities. In attendance today are representatives from every stakeholder group in our city: parents, teachers, and students, young, average, and senior citizens, government and corporate executives, clergy, philanthropists, young professionals and small business owners, heads of neighborhoods and service organizations, and representatives from our arts, medical, legal, scientific, and educational communities. Many of you have invited me over the last 2 months to address your own groups, or you've called me personally to congratulate me on my appointment to the position of Chief Executive Officer. The most frequent comments I've heard are expressions of hope, that at last we have a leader who knows the district and will carry out the mission of the Academic Transformation Plan. Finally, we have a school leader who will make things right. And for once, we have one of our own. To each of them and to all of you present today and those listening, I want to make it clear that I'm both humbled and grateful for the opportunity to lead the Cleveland Metropolitan School District at a time of enormous challenge and a time of enormous importance and consequence for our community. But as I've said many times since my appointment, I clearly understand that my selection was not only a vote of confidence in me personally, it was a vote of confidence in us, in the work we've started, and in what we can accomplish as a school community and as a city if we work together for our schools. For as we all know, I am not Superman. In fact, I'm barely Clark Kent. If Cleveland were waiting for Superman, as a widely publicized film last year said urban districts in America are, then Cleveland will surely be waiting for another 28 years for academic transformation that will never magically appear. Today, not only is our nation still at risk, but the education system that the children of Cleveland and our community rely upon for any hope of a real future is indeed at risk. In January of 2010, CMSD unveiled our aggressive academic transformation plan. Dr. Michael Casserly, the executive director of the Council of the Great City Schools in Washington, D.C., came to Cleveland to applaud the vision of our school community that funded, supported, and participated in the development of this plan. He joined an entire community in praising those who made it possible and those who were charged with carrying out the reforms that were outlined in it. He declared that if our plan is to be successful, Cleveland would be at the forefront of the educational reform movement in our nation. And while recognizing that Cleveland has a bold vision, Dr. Casserly warned us that it's simply not enough to have a good transformation plan in place. Nor is it enough to have strong leaders in place to carry out that plan on their own. Investing in quality schools is simply not a spectator sport, where you can buy a ticket, and you can bring the snacks, and you can sit on the sidelines, cheering us on. Each and every stakeholder in the Cleveland community must realize the role that a strong education system plays in our neighborhoods, in our city, in our region, and in our lives. And we must be willing to invest in our city schools to ensure that the academic transformation plan works as it is intended, for the benefit of every child and for the colleges and workforces that await for them in this region. We cannot continue business as usual, waiting year after year for Superman to transform our schools for us. In Ohio, we've been waiting for well over a decade for Columbus to figure out how to lead, support, and finance our schools, watching as governor after governor has attempted to craft solutions for us. We've waited for the U.S. government to transform us, bringing promises that no child would be left behind. We've lived through the implementation of parochial school vouchers and the creation of charter school laws so that families could choose to transform themselves if they really want to. And we have continued to invest more resources in high-performing school systems and in private school tuition for some children, while we have often disinvested in low-performing school systems, blaming them, their students, and their families for their failure. Unfortunately, the achievement gap for too many cities in America is defined around a simple premise: who is valuable in this society and who is not, who we have high hopes for and for whom we have no great expectations. It's time to loudly reject that definition and show the nation that here in Cleveland, we value our children, not just some of our children, but all of our children. We know and understand the consequences of the failure of any of them for our community, and we must be willing to invest in their future. That recognition, of course, is the heart of the academic transformation plan. In the months following the launch of the academic transformation plan, when we should have been able to put our full attention on its implementation, instead we found ourselves constantly focusing on the greatest single roadblock to meeting our goals: the declining financial condition of the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. Cleveland, like every public school district in the nation, grapples daily with a budget that takes needed attention away from our academic challenges to deal instead with recurring and ever-compounding financial challenges. State and federal governments, from where K-12 education support has traditionally been guaranteed, are dealing with huge budget deficits of their own, resulting in states like Ohio slashing educational budgets at unexpected and unprecedented levels. Our heavy reliance on federal grants is now a thing of the past. The millions of dollars that the U.S. government invested to keep schools' budgets intact during a stalled economy are gone. Ohio has had to cut $8 billion from its own budget, leaving school districts, cities, and counties to fend for themselves. Dwindling tax revenues at the local level further compound those financial challenges. And in Cleveland, we've offered no new operating revenue to our city schools since 1996. That was 15 years ago. Over those same 15 years, Cleveland has lived with small, incremental gains in achievement in their public schools, while watching wave after wave of employee layoffs, ballooning class sizes in many of our classrooms, the use of outdated textbooks, and the reduction of extended day programs and extracurricular activities as examples of the impact. In fact, with no help in sight, Cleveland was forced to take dramatic measures to address mounting deficits, cutting over $104 million in just the last 2 years alone. For a moment, I challenge us to envision what it would look like if we truly invested in a transformational approach to education in Cleveland. Fortunately, we already have several examples to look for within the district. CMSD has a portfolio of new and innovative schools that have significantly outperformed many other typical schools, both in CMSD and across our community. These innovative schools, including 4 gender schools, 2 new tech high school academies, the Ginn School for Boys, Design Lab Early College High School, and MC Squared STEM High School, all serve typical students with no enrollment criteria, and each has earned a rating of continuous improvement or higher on the Ohio State report cards. These schools and others were created with the generous support of the Cleveland Foundation, the Gunn Foundation, and many other donors that have provided the upfront investment capital that is necessary to start new schools. These schools also have unique labor management agreements, including new guidelines for length of school day, for hiring and assignment of staff members, for professional development, and for work conditions. Agreements crafted in collaboration with the Cleveland Teachers Union, allowing for more autonomous school-level operations. Clearly a glimpse of what investment in transformation can look like. And while these proven models have worked successfully in Cleveland for now several years, we have yet to commit as a community to the creation of an innovation fund that will allow the district to replicate these startups at a more aggressive pace for more and more students. Nor have we secured the resources to ensure the long-term sustainability and success of these innovation schools that are already in operation, many of which are now threatened by the same necessary staff layoffs and severe budget cuts I just mentioned. Another example of transformative thinking is the collaborative development of a new, modern teacher development and evaluation system that is already being implemented in 25% of the district's schools this year. This 21st century model abandons the traditional checklist system of teacher evaluations that was created decades ago based on a civil service workforce model. CMSD's new teacher development and evaluation system measures teacher performance against a rubric of research-based skills that professional educators should know and be able to do in the classroom. The system is based on multiple observations and both teacher and student work samples. Multiple sources of student achievement data are also planned for the use to assess teacher performance, with the goal of helping teachers improve and removing those teachers who are not able to demonstrate that improvement. As you know, I believe there are some laws in Ohio that limit our ability to make the systemic changes we need to fully transform the field of education. But the work we've already done in Cleveland to improve teacher development and evaluation demonstrates that there's quite a bit we can do on our own to transform the way Cleveland's teachers and school leaders are recruited, trained, supported, and paid when we have the vision and the collective will to do so. As we continue this groundbreaking work together, we must accelerate those reforms that shift our perception of educators from those of civil service employees to those of professionals in a system that respects and rewards them for their quality work. We can also look at charter schools' work in Cleveland as another example of transformative thinking. CMSD has taken a very proactive stance regarding high-performing charter schools as one way of providing better opportunities for more kids. In fact, CMSD currently sponsors a number of the Breakthrough Charter Network schools, one of which is even housed in our own Garrett Morgan campus. But while we've championed these high-performing charter schools, we have done nothing as a community to stop the flood of thousands of students into incredibly low-performing charter schools. And more of these students are being enticed to these failing schools with promises of free gift cards, ice cream socials, and bouncy games, free school supplies, lunch, transportation, and tuition, aggressively enticed, in fact, by everything except the promise of a quality education. Now, I say that recognizing that we have a tremendous amount of work to do in our own system. I fully support families choosing high-performing schools for their children. However, our solution to transforming Cleveland schools cannot simply be to replace one system with struggling schools with a new system of failing schools. A recent Plain Dealer editorial urged the state of Ohio to find a better and more timely way to put poorly performing charter schools out of business. While the state has not addressed this issue full-tide, we have to look at a rising tide of enrollment in poorly performing charter schools, and as a community can play an active part in stopping the annual flow of over $113 million into these failure factories in our city. Another example of transformative thinking that we can look toward is the progress we've made in our efforts to reinvent some of our own low-performing schools. Anyone in education knows this is surely the hardest part of the work of school reform, not just here, but nationally. Almost no one seems to have solved this problem. Often, people aren't really interested to do so. It's easier to start something new. Starting new is a strategy, but it will not solve all of the children who do not have those opportunities, and we have to figure this out. And in Cleveland, business and community partnerships with schools like the Max S. Hayes Career and Technical Center, the Promise neighborhood work beginning in our Cleveland Central City, and the P16 work now developing in the Slavic Village neighborhood are promising and inspirational efforts aimed at changing ineffective schools in ways that will better serve the needs of their community. To meet our transformation goal of having every school in the district continuous improvement or above, we need a city-wide reinvestment strategy to support such meaningful and effective partnerships broadly and immediately, instead of becoming victims of highly restrictive federal mandates for restructuring schools. 28 years after the warning of a nation at risk, the fact remains that no city in America has yet fully invested in the transformation of its educational system. As a result, urban school systems across America have suffered a recurring, familiar, and cyclical fate, with one reform agenda replacing another one, in a cycle of change that comes and goes with each new plan and every new leader. Here in Cleveland, we've already broken a part of that all-too-familiar cycle that results in too many city school districts moving 2 steps forward and then 3 steps back. As other districts abandon reforms in progress and bring in new leaders and new teams, the Cleveland Board of Education, Mayor Jackson, and the Cleveland community put their faith in the academic transformation plan and the team in place in Cleveland. The Board of Education and the community's faith in me, I continue to remind my staff, is an expression of faith in us, in all of us, in the plan we put in place, in the people who continue to lead us on a path to premier. Equally, the Board's faith in our present course is both a recognition and protection of the investment that some have already made in our programs and our progress. But no less important is the question of whether we are, as a community, truly willing to make the first full investment in school reform in our nation. A full investment as a community in a transformational vision. At a time when our nation wrestles with yet another Jobs Act that at its best would bring only temporary relief to local communities, And when our state is forced to balance its budget on the backs of its own schools, cities, and counties, will we continue to take a traditional path? Before I answer what I think we'll do, let me offer one final Cleveland example. In parts of Cleveland, we've already decided that the investment in education matters. Consider, for example, Shaker Heights, where the 2009-2010 per pupil expenditure was $17,061. Cleveland Heights University Heights, where the per pupil expenditure was $17,394. Beechwood, where the per pupil expenditure was $19,506. Or Orange City Schools, where the per pupil expenditure was $21,191. Consider the costs that some people are willing to pay for a private education at Hathaway Brown, University School, or Western Reserve Academy, where tuitions range from $17,310 for an entering kindergartner to as much as $30,500. Now, I'm not trying to say that money is the answer. And I need to note that there are also a number of public and private schools in our region who actually operate for less than the $14,503 we currently invest in a student in the Cleveland schools. But what I'm saying is, it's important to consider the value we place on education in some parts of our community, especially when you consider that many of the students receiving some of those same pricey educations began school far ahead of their CMSD peers in the first place. Fundamentally, the state of our schools today is largely dependent upon the decisions we will make in Cleveland today, tomorrow, and in the critical days to come. If we choose, as so many have, the traditional path of waiting for Superman, CMSD will continue to make only incremental gains at best, while deepening cuts to our already strained programs and resources for kids, essentially undoing the transformational work that we've begun. But if we as a community, over the course of this year, become the first city in the nation to truly transform and invest in a transformational change, the evidence we have already shows that we can do so much more. Let's embrace the notion that the academic transformation of the Cleveland Metropolitan School District, real, meaningful, and lasting change in our schools, is change that we ourselves not only believe can happen, but will make happen. If it sounds today like the state of the schools is a serious matter, that's because it is. The focus of my speech today certainly could have been on the victories we've had over the past year. It would have been a safer speech. I could have said 8.5% increase on the Ohio graduation rate. I could have boasted about our increased reading and math proficiency rates on 13 state tests. I could have talked about the increased number of schools that have earned ratings of continuous improvement, effective, excellent, and excellent distinction again this year. And I could have boasted another 14% drop in serious safety incidences in our schools for a 4-year drop of 54%. But if I'd only focused on those gains, I would be ignoring the fact that there are far too many of my kids still lagging behind their peers here in our city, across our state and nation. Today, when we're finished here, my team and I will go back to the administration building to work on reducing our budget by another $15 million to address yet another round of state-imposed budget cuts. But even as we continue to make those difficult choices, we do so knowing that we have another opportunity to make quite another choice in the days to come. We have the choice to fully invest in the kinds of reforms that have already worked in Cleveland schools, expanding and supporting new and innovative school models, creating modern work rules where educators are viewed as professionals, not civil servants, and are rewarded for doing so. Supporting only school choice strategies that direct students and families to high-performing public and private schools. And developing business and community partnerships to collectively address the challenges facing Cleveland's lowest-performing schools. As you exit today, there are cards available indicating 6 ways you can immediately help the Cleveland schools. These choices include your personal commitment to doing something as ordinary as offering an after-school program for the children of your community, volunteering in your neighborhood school's classrooms, hallways, cafeterias, or offices. No experience required. partnering with the school to provide internship and mentoring opportunities, or even collecting school supplies at your workplace for a donation to your neighborhood school as a simple and immediate first step. The state of our schools today and in the days to come depends on the investment each and every one of us is willing to make now. Working together, we can forge a partnership that says in Cleveland, school by school, community by community, we will band together to provide the quality education our students need today to be able to compete for the jobs we know will be available to them tomorrow. The children of Cleveland deserve to have great schools. They deserve to have wonderful teachers. They deserve to have a quality education and a chance for a promising future. But there's no magic bullet to fix our schools and to save our kids. There is no Superman. So as we enter the second year of our academic transformation plan, there is also simply no time to wait. Thank you for joining me today and for all that each of you, many of you who I already know, have already done for the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. I am so hopeful about the state of the schools because I know what decision we will make. And I look forward to our critically important work together. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Now we'd like to return to our speaker for our traditional City Club question and answer period. We welcome questions from everybody, including guests. Holding the microphones today are Carrie Miller, who is our program director, and City Club Special Initiatives Coordinator, Philip Williams. Please have our first question.
How you doing, sir?
Well,
thank you for giving us a snapshot of both sides of the streets of the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. My question is this. If I am a CEO, or I'm trying to consider relocate my business to the city of Cleveland, what will be your 30-second or elevator pitch to the CEO, him or her, about the Cleveland Metropolitan School District?
30 seconds, so we got to get a clock running here. I would say that somebody who is considering relocating here can look at a school system that offers a wide variety of choice to students with a number of high-quality options. 41 choices across the city, all meeting the minimum state standards of C or above, and a district that has shown continued improvement with lean resources and an investment in a partnership with the city. And I have 2 seconds left.
What kind of response have you had from parents to the transformation plan, and what kind of engagement are you encouraging them to have in the future?
Excuse me. Parents and all citizens, frankly, have pointed out things that they like about the transformation plan and things that they don't. Parents often focus very specifically on the impact it has on their particular school, as opposed to more community people thinking in a more broad sense. So I've heard a lot more about things in their particular schools. Part of the transformation plan that's been hard for parents, frankly, is the right sizing, which we have to do, which is actually close schools that were close and convenient for parents, causing some real hardships, frankly, on families. And so we've heard a lot, frankly, around that particular conflict of my life got harder because the school that used to be on my corner isn't close and convenient, and I still have to be to work on time. So some real challenges that parents face. As far as what I would hope for parents in an investment, I really believe we need to work hard to move away from parent engagement as the measure to parent involvement as the measure. Not that parent engagement isn't appropriate. We want parents engaged. But we have to stop assuming that if a parent can't come to school, that somehow they're not involved in their child's education. And instead we have to build systems that actually ensure that parents have ways to be involved in their education. And so we've really worked, and our family engagement people are here today, we've really worked on shifting to family universities where we can actually help parents know what are the tools we use in school that you can use at home. And there's some simple ones that we have, like a program called First in Math that can help kids whether you were good at math or not. Or Accelerated Reader, where really it is about just making sure kids are reading and you read with them. and how you can do things from your home to support your schools instead of blaming parents when they can't come to school, or maybe because of their own school experience just frankly aren't willing to. So we're really trying to shift from this notion of engagement to involvement. Uh-oh, a student question. I told them ahead of time these are always the hardest ones. Go for it.
Hi, I'm Jamar Calhoun. My question is, for the No Child Left Behind law, when a student excels to the next grade level, but no knowledge is gained, do you think that's helping the students for future jobs?
Well, it's a great question, and the answer is no. It doesn't help you to move from grade to grade and not make gains. Ohio has done some really advanced work in what's called value added. We have it currently in 3rd through 8th grade reading and math, and it's supposed to help our teachers and our leaders to know whether kids are growing. Sometimes growing means you did make gains even though you didn't get to A yet, or you didn't get to proficiency yet. And so it's both getting you to those goals, because you got to have them, because all of your peers across the state and nation have them, but also making sure you're growing. Locally in Cleveland, we have a strategy, and I won't put Ms. Johnson on the spot, but I know she knows it. It's called a half-band strategy. We actually look at every single student, including you. Your teachers do it too. We look at where you were the last time you took achievement tests. We use tests all year long. You've taken them, those benchmark assessments. And we look to see if you've grown another half band on those achievements. And that's why we knew we were going to see gains in all those reading and math scores even before the report card came out, because your teachers are making sure you're growing.
How you doing, Mr. Gordon? I'm Dante
thank you.
Redrick from Cleveland Schools of Architectural and Design, and my question was, you mentioned that you want to reform the school academically. How do you feel like you're going to do that if the school is overcrowded?
Well, you've just made my point for me. It's a great question, because it's what we're struggling with right now. We have to continue to trim and right size and address our expenses. And that part Cleveland's frankly getting really, really good at. Cut more things, close more buildings, push class sizes as large as we can to get the doors open. But we can't expense our way out of this problem. We're going to continue to work with all of our labor partners and all of our employees, but frankly we can't just cut our salaries year after year after year to get out of this problem. We got to do our part. But we can't. But the expensing is not going to get us out of this problem. We also have to really look at those things that generate revenue back into the district. Both traditional things like support from our community, and non-traditional things like starting to lease vacant space in some of our schools. Some of our schools, to this gentleman's question about parents, I could keep open if I could get maybe a partner like the Boys and Girls Club or the United Way to lease the space that I don't need, which actually brings more service to you at the same time that I get to keep a building open and generates revenue that helps me solve your class problem size. So while I'm an academic person, that's where I want all of my energy, that's how your teachers and leaders know me, I'm spending a lot of time thinking about how do we get at these issues of both continuing to trim our expenses, but then generate the resources that you need and deserve.
Chief, you talked a lot about fully investing, but you weren't terribly specific about it. You mentioned volunteering and ways that people can get involved. You talked about the P16 initiative. But it sounds like you have a target number in mind in terms of per pupil yearly spending. And I wonder what that target is and who you hope will pony up the dough that you need.
That's a good question. Do I have a target number that we should spend? I actually don't. What I do think is we have to redesign how we support schools. First, get to the ability to do the basic things of not having 40 kids in a class, because that's not going on in our suburban peer districts. Our high school kids walk 3 miles to school. I don't know any of us in this room that would get up every day, particularly in January in the sleet, at 6:30 in the morning so that you could be at school on time by walking 3 miles. I just don't know those people. The state says you don't have to provide high school transportation. The reality is we do in our communities. So we have to fix some essential basics, and frankly that takes a little money. But I don't think that's the answer. I think it is things like redesigning how we spend money. So if we can get past those basics, then we need to put a fund in place to invest in new startups, because startups are working. We need to put in the resources that has allowed us to start rethinking the Max Hayeses of the world. We can get at these problems. And part of that, as I said, is making sure dollars don't flow out to poor-performing alternatives. So it's not always just going to the community and ask. Now, I will say, I own a home in this city. I've looked at my taxes, and I get a lot of people say to me, where my taxes are going. Our effective millage in this district is 28 mills total. That's how much we're paying into schools right now. We have a responsibility. I have a responsibility to pay more taxes, and at some point I think we have to ask ourselves that question too, if we're really fully going to invest. But I don't think it's a matter of saying this is the dollar amount. I think it's a matter of building a case that we're going to invest differently. Because what school districts have done, they haven't invested. Frankly, that's my point. We haven't had an investment plan. We've had a spending plan. It's a shift in thinking as well as a resourcing issue.
Good afternoon. Thank you for sharing this information with us. My question is about the role of the nonprofits. In a few answers ago, you talked about leasing the space, but I can look around the room and see fellow nonprofit professionals that have long-standing relationships with this district. In the wave of the transformation plan, how can we align with you all for scope and sequence to make sure that we're reaching the students in the places, in the gaps where they need to be reached?
Thank you. That's work I think we're really getting good at in this community, and not as a district, but as a community. We're seeing nonprofits and the district come together as collaborative groups and talk to each other about that alignment, as opposed to each of us kind of working one off on our own strategy. I've been in Cleveland, this is my 5th year, and I've said several times, many of you have heard me say that, both the promise and peril of Cleveland is the rich philanthropic community that is allowed to have these tremendous nonprofits. The promise is in that we all come in a room and we get aligned and we say, it's not usually what I do, but it's needed and I'll do it. Or, we both do the same thing, so we don't need to do it twice, and aligning resources. But the peril is, because we've had such a long, rich tradition, we have to give up that it's ours and we own it, and we got to get to alignment. I look to examples like some college work that we've been aggressively working on with some partners in this room, like the P16 work in the Slavic Village neighborhood. Many of those partners are here today. Like the Central City Promise neighborhood. We'll never be Jeffrey Canada's model. It's not sustainable. He has a lot of money. But we can certainly learn from the lessons of aligning. Those are examples of how I think we can do that. On the card, there's 6 people to reach out to where you think you can start. And I would say to anybody in the room, if you don't know where to start with me. And I say that everywhere I go. And it's not because I need to touch everything. In fact, I'll reply and say, Tracy, this is yours. Would you respond? To get it moving. But if you don't know where to start, I've so often heard, well, I didn't know where to start. It's such a hard system. Then start with me so that I can push it to where the connections need to be made for those who are ready to align. And we can make this really work.
Yes. Thank you for your illuminating presentation. My question is, are we the only country that has an educational system in crisis? And what are other countries doing, and what can we learn from them?
We are an interesting nation in so many ways compared to other countries. So it's a challenging question to answer because a lot of it is where they put time and effort. I'm going to start with a lot of emerging countries, and particularly the Soviet bloc. As the Soviet bloc dissolved and countries emerged out of what was Russia and then the Soviet Union, so as essentially third world often, they have put all of their investment into teaching and learning, all of it. And they've come to the United States to learn about teaching and learning. And I've actually, through the city, had opportunities to meet with some of these people. And it's stunning the conversations they're having about the choices they've made in their country not to have a military because they have to have education. So it's not about the dollars they put, it's the investment. It's where they call their bets. There are countries in Africa where all of the kids have the exact same haircut. And the reason they have the same haircut is because they care so much about education that the schools have such blanket authority that they've given up even civil liberties to make sure that they have an investment in it. The irony, though, to me is every country knows that they have to get better at education. We all get that that's the race. So at the same time that we look to China to learn about the Chinese education system because they've done some tremendous things, they come here to find out how you create conditions for learning. So we hear all of these stories about how every child is orderly and they have 55 in a classroom and every kid learns, and they're coming here saying, what do you do with disorderly children? They're having the same discussions. But what I've seen, and I've not got to travel extensively, but in my travels I always make an opportunity to go learn about schools. It's where they place their bets. And you see countries like China and India and Japan and Norway and Denmark placing a very different bet, where they're going to do what it takes, they're going to really invest in it, and they're going to be on the top. We talk about it a lot in our country, but we still ultimately tend to land on, things are pretty okay for my kid and for my community, and I know this is serious, but maybe we can deal with it a little later. That's the difference that I see.
My name is Calvin Myers from John F. Kennedy. I would like to know, would there be any more schools closing this year?
Good question. I know we got to talk about it. We have another, $55 to $75 million deficit facing us for next year, and we're not legally allowed to have that. So if I could print money, we'd be right over to Kennedy setting up a print shop, and we'd be running some dollar bills. We can't do that. So we're going to have to talk about it. We also know, frankly, we have some schools that aren't full, and some of them are our high schools. And so we're going to have the hard conversation that nobody wants to have about how many high schools we can run. But I don't think the answer can be just, do you stay open or do you close? I'm going to go back to, what do you do differently? Do you put another school like the charter school? That's not a popular decision with some people, but it kept the building open, and so kids are still getting the education in their school. Do we partner with other agencies or with universities who need classroom space and say, put your classroom space in our spaces so that I can keep your school open? There's other ways to get at this, and so the conversation this year has to be not as simple as open or close. It has to be open, close, or other. That's how we're going to tackle this.
You referred before to the cost of an education in the Orange school system at about $20,000 a year. But isn't the cost in our high-performing charter schools closer to $10,000 per child? And these schools are actually outperforming Orange, Shaker, and the schools that you said. So really, it's not a matter of money. It's how we're spending the money. And really, doesn't this also relate to the union contracts that are really the biggest impediment to basically bringing our costs down?
I would say a couple of things. First, I do, and I will acknowledge again, there are school systems and there are schools that are running with less money. Money is not the sole answer, and I want to be really clear. I'm not standing here saying, just give us money and we'll be fine. I will tell you that those same charter schools know they need more money to keep going. And some of them are here today. They'll honestly say, we're making it, but we need more. So they're facing some of the same struggles of, we're making it so far, how do we keep doing it? The sustainability investments. Do union contracts play a role in it? Certainly. We've negotiated over decades in this state. When districts didn't have money, we gave away rights, or we paid for little things, and we've nickeled and dimed and this and that. And now, as a state, we're saying we need all this stuff back. Collective bargaining agreements are two-way documents. Someone standing right here before you some years ago agreed to those documents. So we have to work on those documents, and we have to be transparent that we are all part of the problem and the solution to it. You hit it right on. I'm not trying to stand here and say, just give us money and that's the answer. In fact, I don't think you should just give us money and expect the answer. We should be able to tell you how we're going to do business differently, how we're going to stop being an organization that just has a bottom line, balance the budget kind of attitude, and start saying, with money we'll invest so that we stand up better stuff, we exit bad stuff. That's where I think the conversation's got to go.
Hello, hi. I wanted to know, how do you plan to get college students that are alums of the Cleveland Public Schools involved?
Another great question, and I would say, first of all, we do now have an alumni site which helps keep people connected to our schools, and so if you haven't been to our website and you are a Cleveland Schools alum or a friend, there's a place to join and let us know of your interest. We're also trying to work a lot harder about staying connected with kids as they leave our district and as they go on to college. So we're working closely with the Cleveland State University right here locally, Tri-C, who's here locally, that we're staying in touch and continuing a relationship. We got a long way to go. We got to figure this out because it's a different way to do business, but we're getting there. We have a partnership with the University of Toledo, for example, where UT is helping us to send students back to our same high schools to encourage those kids to move on to UT. And they've come back and done volunteer work and investment work and things like that. So I think it's a big challenge. I think it's a doable one, and I think we're frankly young in thinking about it. We got a lot of growth to do.
Mr. Gordon, Jean Appleby, and I want to personally congratulate you for your dedication and your hard work. I was struck by your 30-second elevator speech, that in 30 seconds you shared with us a very positive picture of the school system today when it is under your leadership still dealing with many challenges. And I've heard out in the community as I talk about education that people are saying things like, well, we're going to wait and see about the new leadership. We're going to wait to invest in this. We're going to wait. We're not sure this is a sustainable plan. And yet, if a company had measured its effectiveness by the gains under your leaderships that have been achieved in the last 5 years, it would be feeling good about itself, and that CEO would be feeling good. So what more than your whole message can you say today to this audience to say, believe in us now, today, invest today, together we will make it better?
You know, the single thing that I would say, and I'm going to actually put Hugh on the spot here because we talked about this twice in the last 2 weeks, is go in one of our schools and talk to the kids, because you will leave thinking very differently about the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. Hugh and his organization, the Cleveland Bar Association, is part of our 3 R's program. It's just one example where lawyers and people in the legal profession come into our schools on a regular basis working with our 10th grade students on civics. But we actually had a conversation the other day where every time the conversation turned to the richness of the experience, and the schools weren't what I thought they were. And, you know, somehow people have a vision of Cleveland schools as the Joe Clark baseball bat, kids running down the hallway, spray painting the lockers, kind of. That's what people think is going on in his schools. And the single thing I would say is go inside, and then you can decide what you think about the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. I would agree that, I've been here 5 years, and I've heard all of the reasons we should wait. That's frankly what compelled me today to say, I stood up in this community and said, give me a year, I will be accountable, and I believe that. But frankly, if we're going to just wait another year, we could have gone and found somebody that wanted the cushy 4 or 5 year contract in the car and all those other things, because we'd just be in the same place again. We can't afford to wait. So if you think you got to decide whether we should wait or not, email any one of us on that card or me, and we'll get you in a school of your choice. We're not going to handpick it. You can go into the one you think is the worst, and we'll show you why you're wrong.
Hi. Okay, how you doing today? My name is Nathaniel Wissett. I go to John Adams High School. I'm in the Financial Academy part. And with the 3 R's program, that's off your question. I was in that program in 10th grade. It's an awesome program to be in, but because of the amount of time we got, I would like to invite you to our school for a question and answer.
I'll come to your school and do a question and answer. I've been there once already this year.
For our concerns and opinions, so I just want to ask that
Happy to do it.
Oh, thank you.
Roseanne, get his name. We all set? Okay. All right, thank you.
Today at City Club of Cleveland, we've been listening to a special forum featuring Eric Gordon, Chief Executive Officer for the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This forum is now adjourned. Good job.